Season 1 of Medsplaining is brought to you by Estee Lauder. With 40 years of night repair expertise and 30 years of collagen research, Estee Lauder are the experts in nighttime skincare. Before we get into today's topic, make sure to subscribe to the Medsplaining podcast on your favorite podcast platform to never miss an episode. Let's talk about skincare. Achieve ultimate nighttime renewal with Estee Lauder's Advanced Night Repair Serum and new Revitalizing Supreme Night Power Bounce Cream. The serum fights key signs of aging, while the cream boosts collagen and improves elasticity. Wake up to revitalized, youthful skin. Welcome to Medsplaining. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Zelevitsky, and Happy New Year. So listen, I don't really believe in New Year's resolutions because every day of the year is a perfect one to start making your life better, to make a healthier choice, or to start doing the things you're avoiding because they seem challenging or uncomfortable. Having said that, I do think the start of a new year can serve as an inspiration to take the lessons of the previous year and use them to start taking those crucial first steps towards a happier, healthier you. So I've compiled my top 5 health habits to start in 2025 based on the first season of Medsplaining and the lessons that I personally have taken from it. Number 1, book your cancer screening. I'm talking about mammograms, pap tests, and colon cancer. So one unifying theme from season 1 is the importance of being proactive and taking advantage of the one area in which our healthcare system strives to prevent disease in adults. So when my kids were small and they were afraid to go get a needle and immunization, I would always tell them, it's just one little tiny needle. But what it's preventing is a disease that would force you to get thousands of needles and even worse types of tests. And this seemed to work for them. So the same principle applies here. Yes, you may think you can't spare half a day of work to go and get a mammogram, or it might be uncomfortable to be squished a little bit. Maybe you can't stand the thought of taking that prep for a colonoscopy. Maybe you just don't like the anxiety of waiting for a test result. I get it, but I promise you, those minor sacrifices are nothing compared to what it's like to be diagnosed with or to live in the aftermath of cervical, breast, or colorectal cancer, as many of my guests this season have so eloquently elaborated on. Here's a clip of my episode from this season with my guests Tommy and Isreen, where Isreen describes what it was like to get that unfortunate positive result from her pap test.
We really wanted to have kids. We realized that it wasn't working, so we went to see a fertility specialist.
Okay.
And then we said, hey, it's not working. And she said, okay, let's do some testing. And what eventually happened was she found out I haven't had my pap test for before
3-4 years.
Yeah, 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, just in case, go get your pap test. And,
Because 3 years is a normal interval.
right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But during COVID,
Everything.
Nobody
a
goes anywhere.
lot of people fell behind.
Yeah, for sure. And I wasn't too worried because my last one was clear. So I said, okay, sure, no problem. So she did test, and then it was on my birthday, April 12th. We went in, we're going to sign IVF papers. And she was like, oh, so I have news to tell you, your pap test didn't come back clean, and it could be pre-cancer. That's what she said. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, oh, there's a pre before the cancer. That's still okay. And
Yes.
she's like, yeah, lots of people can still have pregnancies. There's tons of stuff you can do. So she put us through into, Sunnybrook Hospital to get some procedures done, to get maybe another swab or anything like that. So we did that. Mm-hmm. And then that came back cancer, full-blown cancer.
Starting in 2025, the pap test is going to be replaced by a direct HPV test, which is much less invasive. So if you're afraid of a pap test, this is even better news for you. Go and speak to your doctor today. starting this year, Ontario dropped the age of mammogram screening from 50 to 40. And here's Dr. Zong explaining the rationale behind that change.
So I would say, let's say just from an epidemiological perspective, we have great studies that show us that the annual incidence of breast cancer has been increasing for women in their 40s. So between the years of 2015 to 2019, the annual incidence of breast cancer has increased by 2% in this age group, climbing to the point now where in Canada, we know that 17% of breast cancer occurs in women in their 40s. That is a significant portion of women who are affected in their 40s. So we can no longer ignore this, I think, important and staggering statistic. Yes. And there's no biological reason why we need to postpone until 50. So I think it's a complete myth that we need to dispel, that breast cancer only occurs in women who are older.
And finally, let's talk colon cancer. So I was one of the very lucky Canadians this year, 2024, who went and had my first colonoscopy and whose life was likely saved by that screening test. And here's a clip in which I explained to my daughter why I was so lucky. So I had 5 polyps, 2 of which were already 8 millimeters, which is considered quite large. Thank goodness none of them were cancerous. They were all benign, but I am now considered higher than average risk for cancer polyps, and I have been asked to come back in 3 years. And from there, they'll take it based on what happens at the next scope. So I am eternally grateful that I made that decision to have the colonoscopy. It is not for everyone. And again, mine was a screening colonoscopy. And if you are having symptoms, you have to talk to your doctor about a diagnostic colonoscopy because that is a more urgent situation. I waited 6 or 7 months to get my scope. The first thing I did was call my brother and sister, who are younger than me, and said, I've just destroyed the family history because now you have to go 10 years earlier than me, which they were already a little late for, but I said, you have to call your doctor right away. I am now someone who had polyps at 49. I wasn't yet 50. So they have to go as early as possible. So they've both actually had a colonoscopy arranged, and you and your sister are going to have to start going.
I know. I was going to say, I
in
recall,
all likelihood.
I too got that text.
Yes. Before I talk about my second tip, I just want to say that we have had the best time creating this content for you for season 1 of Medsplaining. And we were so lucky to have a title sponsor, Estee Lauder Canada. But we're gearing up for season 2. And this is your opportunity to have your product featured as a sponsor of Medsplaining. Maybe you have a product that is geared towards women, towards a healthy lifestyle or healthy aging. Maybe you provide a service to women, but you're having trouble reaching your target audience. We'd love to help you. And we have multiple levels of sponsorship, so we can work within your budget. Please check the links in our bio. Reach out to us today. Let's talk about getting you involved in Medsplaining Season 2. So for my second tip, focus on getting stronger, not skinnier. So if your exercise routine feels comfortable, you're not doing enough. Loss of muscle mass is one of our biggest threats to our long-term health. Sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle, in which lean muscle mass, particularly strength and performance, are significantly compromised as we age, is a big threat to healthy aging. Unfortunately, muscle mass starts in our mid-30s when we're not even remotely thinking about it. In fact, we're often afraid of building muscle at that age because we waste so many years striving to be as small as possible. We need to start teaching our daughters to approach exercise the way our sons do. And the good news is it's never too early or too late to build that muscle nest egg that you'll need for your retirement. I started at 48, so I'm a perfect example of this. But let's hear from some of this season's guests. So here's a clip from my episode with Laura Keogh from Sweet Potato Chronicles, talking about how she started to clue in to the importance of prioritizing strength training.
So is it more about building muscle mass now and less about cardio?
Yes. So our muscle mass peaks at age 35,
Okay.
25 to 35, I should say. After 35, it starts declining at a fairly rapid rate. And this increases as you approach your final period. Who knows when that's going to be?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to start in your 30s and 40s especially to focus on building your muscle mass.
Right.
And this is where protein is so vital. We want to be including protein at every meal because for women especially, evidence suggests that you need your protein to be distributed throughout your day, not just packed into a short time window.
Meal.
You got it.
And now, here's my guest, Gina Livy, from a recent episode talking about the connection between rapid weight loss and muscle mass.
A lot of people have spent a lot of time dieting, starving, depriving. So there's a difference between fat loss and weight loss where they're losing muscle along the way. So you combine that with the muscle they've lost through consistent dieting over the years, plus aging, and the muscle you lose
After
naturally.
35.
For women, it starts going down and we're not
Yes.
even aware. What are we thinking about at 35?
Right?
We're not thinking about our muscle mass. And
Not
it's
that.
slowly slipping away.
Yes. So you add aging, you add menopause, and then now you add, drugs that can, just make that even worse situation.
Right. Because it's rapid. Because it's rapid weight loss. And rapid weight loss is one of the risk factors for osteoporosis.
Yes.
So I agree. It's so important to just do the other things.
One thing I want to point out here, just to conclude my second tip, is part of the problem with the diet culture and particularly with the use of medications for rapid weight loss is that a lot of women don't realize rapid weight loss, abrupt and drastic weight loss in the adult years is a major risk factor for osteoporosis, which ultimately leads to hip fracture and spine fracture and is one of the leading causes of both mortality and loss of independent mobility in the older years. One thing I've been thinking about a lot lately as I meet more and more adults who are rapidly losing weight with the help of Ozempic or other medications like that, or even through drastic dieting, is that they're probably losing equal parts lean muscle mass and fat. And in addition to this, they are increasing their risk of developing osteoporosis, which of course is thinning of the bones that predisposes your bones to fracture of the hip and the spine. And so this is one of the leading causes of loss of independent mobility. It lands a lot of people in nursing homes, unable to walk or mobilize on their own. And it's important to realize 25% of women of an older age who have a hip fracture are dead within a year. So my fear is we're going to have a lot of hot, skinny women in nursing homes in 20 years if we don't start to focus more on maintaining muscle mass. So for my third tip, I'll start with an expression that I really love, which is you can't outrun your fork. Meaning, exercise is great, but what we eat is crucial for a healthy body and mind. This is why it's so important to foster a positive relationship with food. Food is meant to fuel us. It shouldn't be labeled as good or bad, but we need to pay attention to how what we eat is making us feel. So what will promote muscle growth? What will nourish our brain? What allows us to sleep more soundly? And how do we feel about ourselves when we eat one thing versus another? Mindful eating is what unifies all of my diet and nutrition-based guests this season. For example, here's a clip of my episode with Kyla Fox.
I remember saying, I'm just going to exercise a little bit more because I think it just might help me with this stress that I feel about not knowing what to do with myself. And I have the time now.
Sure.
So it became this sort of like seemingly innocent experience that was supported by people because I think that's what we do. We support people to move their bodies.
Absolutely.
And it just
And
took
it's
over
not
me.
that it's not that there's an inherent problem with that.
No.
Right. It's just you never know.
When it can.
You just have the right constellation of factors. Did you feel external pressures or was it all internal for you?
I think it was always both. I think that internally I was really lost. Externally, I felt like that might have been what my value was. And holding on to that or trying to make that better was really an intention for me. And so I just started to exercise a whole bunch more. And then that kind of like, spun into restricting certain foods, certain categories of food, certain amounts of foods. And then the next thing I knew, I would say like, 4 to 6 months later, I was like full blown anorexia.
And here's a clip from my episode with Laura Keogh, where she talks about the importance of fueling your body with the right foods and paying attention to how they make you feel.
Often people find food hard. And so I'm here to make it easy, because taking care of your body, particularly in this season of your life for women, is really important. And the easiest thing you can do is begin in the kitchen with your nutrition.
So for my fourth tip, prioritize your sleep. Easier said than done, I know, right? Well, the amount changes with age, but most women need at least 7 hours to optimize mental health and weight maintenance. Most women at midlife tell me that falling asleep is not an issue. They're exhausted. But sleep maintenance and the quality of our deep sleep definitely decline. So the first step is to identify what is waking you up. Are you snoring? Maybe you need a sleep study to rule out sleep apnea or upper airway issues. Do you wake up to pee constantly? Maybe you'd benefit from limiting fluids after 7 p.m. or seeing a pelvic health physiotherapist. Are you sweating all night? Maybe you should consider hormone replacement therapy. Is your mind racing? Are you worrying about things that don't seem as concerning during the day? This is often a sign of anxiety that arises in perimenopause. And a first step might be some counseling, which can really help you. So we know sleep is crucial, and it's often a little bit beyond our control. So getting to the bottom of your sleep struggles can lead to dramatic improvements in so many other areas of your life. It's really essential. Here's a clip from my episode with sleep specialist Alana McGinn talking about the importance of sleep.
When we're dealing with midlife, I'm going to kind of branch it out as midlife because yes, perimenopause and menopause definitely affects our sleep. A big part of that is hormones and just what your body is physically going through with that transitional change. But also when we're dealing with midlife women, and this is why I am putting such a focus on sleep in midlife, there's also a lot of life transitions that are happening at this stage, right? So we're seeing career changes, relationship changes, kids leaving the nest or caregivers. I mean, sandwich generation, you're dealing with your teens who are also going through puberty.
Isn't it a joke?
It's such a joke.
It's a great irony.
it's from
who's more
a midlife woman who has
more
3
moody,
teens.
the teen girl or the mom?
Yeah, totally. Or
Poor
the menopausal mom, right?
Poor males in our household,
I know. But then there's also the caregivers, the sandwich generation. And then we're also dealing with our aging parents as well, right? So there's a lot that happens in this age range. So stress management, I think, is such an important component in terms of sleep.
And finally, number 5. If there's a unifying message to sum up self-care for women, it's this: don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. What do I mean by that? Well, so many women I speak to are paralyzed by perfection. They refuse to strength train because they don't belong to a gym. They don't have 30 minutes, or they have a sore shoulder. But so many think the only way to manage their weight is to go on a drastic diet and to do it perfectly. So many women are beating themselves up right at this very minute over every little thing they aren't able to accomplish in a day. Failure seems to be a safer option than falling short of perfect. This has to stop. When I was faced with some health challenges in 2020, I started with very small changes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of movement or meditation before I went to sleep. I now think about my to-do list as things I'm lucky enough to be able to do. I literally label it my things I'm lucky to get to-do list on my phone. But look, some days come along where I don't get to everything, and I don't beat myself up if I have to prioritize other things that day. We have to become flexible in our approach. Modify your workouts around your injuries. Add that lightweight vest or ankle weights to your daily walk. And do one thing in your workout every day that makes you a little uncomfortable. Remember, no one is going to step up and allow you to prioritize your health and wellness. There's no fairy godmother. There's only you. And you deserve to live a healthy and independent life. Ask yourself, am I working 80 hours a week just to retire into a nursing home? Am I bending over backwards to help my kids have a full and happy life? Am I driving them to all of their physical activities only to become dependent on them because I failed to carve out time for my own health? When my kids are annoyed that I'm on my Peloton, I tell them I'm actually doing it for them, so they don't have to carry me up and down the stairs when I'm 75. They get it. It's not selfish to keep myself healthy. It's selfish to allow myself to fall apart. So let this be your call to action. And have a happy, healthy, and vibrant 2025 from all of us here at Medsplaining. We can't wait to see you in season 2. And please share this episode with your friends, whether it's January 1st, January 15th, or March 5th. I don't care. It's never too late to start becoming healthier. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Medsplaining. If you have any questions, shoot me a DM. And if you'd like this episode, the best thing you can do is tell a friend or rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast so other women can discover it. And don't forget, if you're listening to this, you may be happy to know that we video every single episode, so you can watch it if you prefer on YouTube. See you next week. Medsplaining is produced by Ghost Bureau. Thank you for tuning in to Medsplaining. While we strive to provide accurate and insightful information, this podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The opinions expressed by our host and guests are their own and should not be interpreted as medical advice. Every individual's health situation is unique, and it is crucial to consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your specific concerns and conditions. Additionally, any links, resources, or references mentioned in our episodes are provided for informational purposes only and are not sponsored by Medsplaining. The producers and hosts of Medsplaining assume no responsibility or liability for any actions taken as a result of listening to our podcast. We encourage you to use the information presented here as a starting point for discussions with your healthcare provider. Information and references are subject to change based on scientific evidence as it evolves over time. The hosts and producers of Medsplaining are not responsible for future changes to the information and references and assume no obligation to update based on future developments. Remember, your health and well-being are paramount. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to exploring more topics in women's health with you in future episodes.